I'd like to dig a little deeper into synchronizing writes by diagramming out an insert. On the left, I have my client code, and what I'm doing is making an insert into the items collection with this document. The insert method just calls into a Meteor method, and we have a client stub defined here for that method. Normally, the collection itself would define the method, but I'm putting it here as an example so that we can visualize it. And then on the server, we have the server version of that method defined as well. Now, we're subscribing to the items subscription and publishing out all of the items here. So we should have visibility into all of the items in this collection. Now, the magic happens mostly when we call the client stub here. Let me walk you through that. Before Meteor even calls into this function, it prepares all of the local stores. Remember, stores from the PubSub chapter was the primary API that the Live Data Connection uses to interact with our local cache or local collection. And so what Meteor will do is to say to all of those stores, hey, prepare yourself, we're about to do an RPC call. So if any writes happen inside of the methods, go ahead and store away the original values of those documents so that we can compare with what we get back from the server later. So for example, before we actually insert this document into the local database of the local cache, we'll store away the original value. So let's just over here call this originals. And these will be the original documents for the items collection. And in this case, let's say we're inserting a doc with an ID of 1. And so there will be an object here of original documents, and we'll have one with an ID of 1, and its value will be the original value of the document before we make the change. Now, in this case, we're making an insert, but it could be a change or an update or a remove as well. And so if it was an update, we would just put the original value of the document. In this case, since we don't have the document, the original value is undefined. And then once all the method body is completed, Meteor's live data code will store away these original values into something it calls server docs. We'll look at the actual code in a different video, so this is just to give you some concept of what's happening. All right, now that we've stored away the original value, it's safe to make the insert into the local cache. And so then the document will get put right into our local database or Mini-Mongo, or even your own if you had written a custom one. And so now the user interface, which is bound to our local cache, gets updated right away. But we've stored away the original value of the document. So that way we can see what we get back from the server. Now at this point, once we've called the stub, we'll make the RPC call to the server. And that's when the actual server-side method gets called. Inside that method, the actual insert into MongoDB happens. And so this will pop this right into our actual database. And at that point, we'll get an added message sent back for the new document because we're subscribed to the items publication up here, the items subscription. Now, the interesting thing is what happens with this added message. So the added message will contain the document that's been added. So imagine there's an object here with the fields of the new document, just like we've seen before. Well, instead of updating the local database, like we would normally do if we got one of these messages, Meteor recognizes that there is a document in server docs with the same ID as the document that just got sent to us. So what it will do is to take this value here, the document, and replace the undefined value with the value from the server. Now, even though we've gotten the added message at this point, the local database or the local mini Mongo or cache has not been updated yet, and so our user interface will still reflect the old value. All we've done is updated this temporary object called server docs that has the original value of the document. Then, once the server has said that the method is completely done, it'll send that final updated message with the ID, of the method. So we'll have the method ID. I'll just call this the method ID, like that. Now, when the client gets this updated message, that's when it says, okay, what were the documents that were written by this method? And it will find this document here. Except the document here will now have the new value that we got from the server. And at that point, it's going to update the local cache or the local database with the actual value from the server. And so more specifically, it's going to replace the cached version of the document with the value from the server. Now, it's possible that we never got this added message, that the server never actually sent it. Remember, for example, if we weren't subscribed here, we would never actually get the added message, in which case the original value would still be undefined. And in that case, we'd have to revert the insert in the local cache, so we would just remove it. Or it's possible that the value just changes a little bit from the server, in which case we have to update our local cache. Or it's just possible that the value that we get back from the server is exactly the same as the one that we have locally, in which case we don't really need to do anything. So the purpose of this video was to give you a little bit of a visualization of how the client is able to store away the original values for a document and then update its local cache right away, and then make the RPC call to the server, and then take whatever is passed back through the added, removed, or changed messages and update the original value of the document. And finally, when we get the updated message saying that the whole method is complete, how it's able to replace what we put into our local cache with whatever we got back from the server. And then we can consider this entire method process complete. And next up, we'll look at some actual code where we'll write a simple client version of this.